Globally, the massacre of Christians also raises profound questions about the state of religion itself. On one hand, violent hostility toward Christianity signals that religious identity remains one of the most powerful forces on earth, capable of provoking fear, allegiance, and conflict. On the other hand, prophetic interpretations suggest that the growing intolerance toward the Christian worldview reflects a world increasingly resistant to moral absolutes, transcendent truth, and divine authority. Persecution, in this sense, becomes both a mirror and a spiritual diagnostic tool, revealing not only the resilience of believers, but the spiritual condition of societies that lash out at them. In this prophetic framework, Christian suffering is not an endpoint, but a precursor. The global rise of persecution is seen not as evidence of Christianity's weakness, but of its imminent transformation, a faith entering its most refined and decisive era. The belief is that history is not spiraling out of control. Instead, it is moving toward a culmination long foreseen. Thus, the massacres, tragic and painful as they are, take on a dual identity. They are both wounds in time and signs in the divine timetable. President Trump has sharply escalated international pressure on Nigeria by publicly declaring that he believed Nigerian Christians were facing an existential threat. He ordered the U.S. United States Department of Defense, DoD, to prepare for possible action should Nigeria fail to stop what he described as mass killings of Christians. He also added Nigeria back to the U.S. list of countries of particular concern for alleged religious freedom violations, signaling a renewed U.S. focus on the issue. Behind those moves is more than concern for religious minorities. Trump's stance appears driven in part by domestic political calculations, appealing to his evangelical base and signaling a tough interventionist posture in foreign policy under the banner of protecting persecuted Christians. The global impact is twofold. First, the spotlight on Nigeria now, and the possibility of U.S. intervention, magnifies scrutiny on how religious violence is handled globally, raising questions about state capacity, minority protection, and the role of external powers in domestic conflicts. Second, Trump's rhetoric fuels international debate about religious freedom, humanitarian intervention, and the fine line between protection and interference, potentially influencing policy stances beyond Africa. Many people find Trump's involvement in Nigeria unusual, not because the issue of Christian persecution is new, but because of the selective nature of his attention. Critics argue that similar or even worse crises, such as those involving Christians and other minorities in Sudan, South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and parts of the Middle East, have not received the same high-profile intervention, threats of military action, or dramatic foreign policy statements. This discrepancy makes his focus on Nigeria appear politically strategic, rather than part of a consistent global human rights agenda.
For example, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, the threat to Christians remains severe. In 2025 alone, an attack by the Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, killed 70 Christians who had been abducted and taken to a church in North Kivu province, where they were executed. In another atrocity that same year, militants attacked a Catholic church during a night vigil in Ituri province, killing dozens of worshippers, including women and children, in what was condemned internationally as a church massacre. Further west, in Mozambique, the danger remains acute. In September 2024, more than 30 Christians were reportedly beheaded by an extremist group, with churches and homes burned across multiple villages in the country's northern provinces. Since the 2021 military takeover in Sudan, which saw the collapse of constitutional protections for faith minorities, Christians in Sudan have increasingly found themselves under direct threat. The breakdown of rule of law and the eruption of civil war between the regular army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, in 2023 drastically worsened conditions for religious minorities. Violence is no longer sporadic or local. Entire communities, churches, places of worship, and Christian institutions have been targeted. There are repeated reports of churches bombed or shelled, clergy attacked, Christian worshipers killed or arrested simply for gathering. One recent example, In mid-2025, the RSF reportedly bombed multiple churches in the city of El Fasher, North Darfur, killing several people, an attack condemned as a direct assault on religious freedom. Many Christians, often from formerly South Sudanese and other minority backgrounds, are being forced into hiding, fearful of attending private or public worship. Some have been arrested even during innocent gatherings such as funeral prayers.
A church leader described how Christians now stay indoors to avoid being arrested.
The war has decimated church infrastructure. Since the conflict began, over 150 churches have reportedly closed or been destroyed. Christian villages, mission schools, hospitals, and community centers, often once safe havens, are now vulnerable or gone. Outside the physical destruction, the persecution is also systemic. Many Christians from Muslim backgrounds face imprisonment, ostracization, torture, or forced displacement simply for their faith. What began decades ago as institutionalized discrimination under Islamist regimes has spiraled into full-scale violent persecution, compounded by civil war, indiscriminate attacks on civilians, and collapse of protections that once existed for religious minorities in Sudan. From a geopolitical standpoint, Nigeria is a very different stage from Sudan. Nigeria is Africa's most populous nation, a major oil producer, and an economic and political heavyweight. Any crisis there has major global consequences. If instability worsens, it can affect oil markets, trigger mass displacement of millions, and destabilize West Africa. Sudan, by contrast, is already fractured and internationally recognized as unstable. Intervention there doesn't carry the same symbolic shockwave or strategic leverage. So when Trump singles out Nigeria, it feels less like moral outrage and more like geopolitical theater.
From a domestic U.S. political perspective, Nigeria also resonates more directly with Trump's evangelical Christian base. Over the past decade, American churches, particularly evangelical and Pentecostal networks, forged strong ties with Nigerian Christian communities. U.S. pastors frequently visit Nigeria, Nigerian Christians regularly migrate to the U.S., and Nigerian churches have become influential across American Christian circles. Sudan lacks that same level of grassroots cultural and religious connection. In other words, talking about Nigeria energizes Trump's political supporters in a way Sudan does not. There's also the optics. Nigeria represents a battleground for narratives about global religious freedom. If Trump positions himself as protector of Christians in Nigeria, a powerful rising African state, he reinforces an image of decisive leadership confronting evil abroad. Sudan's tragedy, sadly, has been normalized in global consciousness. Its civil wars stretch back decades, its humanitarian crises are cyclical, and the world has repeatedly failed to intervene. With Sudan, outrage feels exhausted. With Nigeria, outrage feels fresh. Finally, there is an uncomfortable truth. International attention is rarely based on moral urgency, but on political utility. Nations that are strategically important, economically influential, or symbolically powerful get attention. Others, even those drowning in suffering, fall into silence. Trump's focus on Nigeria highlights that double standard. When a superpower speaks, it does so not simply because of humanitarian concern, but because of the political resonance, economic leverage, and ideological benefit it can extract. So, it's thought that the controversy is not really about Nigeria. It's about what Trump's involvement reveals. That global recognition of suffering is uneven, that some persecuted communities are more politically useful than others, and that humanitarian outrage often follows the logic of power, not the logic of equality.